Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of ToD Talks. Our guest today comes from England and is one of the best commentators as well as desk host in esports. He has worked on multiple games from StarCraft 2 to World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, and now PUBG as well. I'm joined by James Carroll, aka Kaelaris. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. I found a few days off, which is quite nice. I thought my schedule was going to be lighter in the last couple of months, but then it turned out to be really busy. So, yeah, I'm doing all right.
Um, you're born in '88, right? When and where were you born?
Jeez Louise. So, unfortunately, I was born in Bradford, England, which is, can I swear?
Yeah.
Actually, no, I can do this. It's a hole. So
Oh my god.
yeah, I d- it's not a very nice place. And then I grew up in a small little village, which I almost turned into a chav because I was hanging out with the wrong people. And then we moved to a nice village where I didn't turn into a chav. So, but that was that was when I was really young. But yeah, I was
What?
born in a rubbish place.
A chav is the thug that wears like sweatpants and stuff, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
Is it like a very negative word or something? Because I know a couple British people on Twitch, and I try to use this word about them as a joke. Because one of them, it was like always
Oh.
wearing like tracksuit and stuff, and he didn't seem amused in the slightest. So
Nah, they're not going to be amused. It's very derogatory, I would say. And when I was like maybe 10, 11, 12, I think if I'd have stayed where I was living originally, like me and my brother maybe would have turned into those kinds of people, but then my parents came into money, so we moved to a nice place.
so what was your beginning like with video games? Like from what age did you start playing? Actually, let's go before that.
Oof.
What were you like before video games? Because I only know the Kaelaris that's like, always watching games every day, casting games. So was there
Yeah.
ever the athletic Kaelaris running track at school or like doing fencing, whatever?
Um so that's that's a good question as to what was before video games because I don't think I even remember a time before video games. Like even when I was a little bit more athletic, as you put it, like and I wasn't that much by any stretch of the imagination, but I liked football. I liked running a lot, and was pretty good when it came to the running stuff back in high school. But during that entire time, it was all video games as well. I was originally introduced to video games by like my uncle, or not even then. Actually, I think my dad was just like because we had like a Commodore 64 way back, and that's where I started with video games. And then my uncles introduced me to like Sega Mega Drive, PC gaming, and all that stuff. So yeah, there's not much time before video games.
And so what was your first contact then? I'm guessing console most likely.
Yeah, so Commodore 64 and Amiga were what my dad had originally. And we played some really old games on that, like not just like the floppy disk games, but like big disk games that you would put in. Um, and I can't remember too much from that. Like I remember some random games like Adam's Family and One Man and His Droid. Nobody knows these. Space Ball. Nobody knows these games. Uh, but then, as I say, we advanced on to like Sega Mega Drive, and we play like Sonic. My uncle, who was my dad's brother, was a layabout, a lazy douchebag. In the early years, so all he would do, he lived at his mum's place, my grandma's, and just played Sega Mega Drive. And I'm not even sure what he worked as at the time. But then we would just like whenever we go to grandma's, we'd like go and raid his room and play Sega Mega Drive. And yeah, that was good.
Is there one game that you remember as being like the one game that's, I guess, was the most memorable? Maybe where you struggle a little bit? Because I remember I played, my first game was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle
Mm,
on NES, the first Nintendo, and then I
yeah.
struggled a lot with one of the level. At some point, I just got stuck in the game, and back then, like,
Uh-huh.
it's not like I could go on internet and look at like for what I needed to do. So I just kind of remember this vividly, like struggling at some stage in this game. Do you have something like that?
So the we didn't struggle to we were pretty well for young. Me and my brother were all right at games. But the one we struggled with on Sega was Lion King, which even to this day is quite notorious for how difficult it was the first couple of levels. And the reason it was so difficult is because the game designers made it that way so that when kids went and rented it out at like a Blockbusters or whatever the hell you would rent games at, the first levels were so difficult that they would have to go rent it again because they won't be able to complete it in the time that they of rental, uh, which is kind of ridiculous. But even from a younger age, like I had another uncle on my mum's side of things, and he was a PC gamer. So we would occasionally go over there. And yeah, I remember his PC was like under this flight of stairs, like little Harry Potter Hobbit world, and we would I would see him playing games, and be playing Warcraft 2 and StarCraft 1, which from a very young age we were like, "What are these games? This is on the PC. This is cool." And then we got Warcraft 2 for the PlayStation 1. I don't know why, but we didn't have a PC. It was crap on the PlayStation. But I don't know how are you controlling it with this little thing. Ridiculous. But I think that was our first entry, like into Blizzard games, and we were like, "Wow, these are really cool."
Yeah, and so after that, I kind of know. I mean, we've talked about it before, and also I think when I started first knowing you, it was still maybe around slightly after that time. You moved
Mm.
to Finland, and you were there for a little bit.
Hmm.
So how did that happen, and how did you enjoy living there?
Yeah, so that was quite a ways on from there, I suppose. I'd gone through high school from there, and then into college, and then towards the end of college, I I moved to Finland.
Well,
Um,
what degree did you get?
law, basically,
That
which is
sounds pretty important to mention.
it's just useless. Actually, I was asked to like because I was like not audited, but like the Polish tax man was like, "What are you doing for a living? You're making too much money for doing this weird thing. What are you doing?" So we like sent him a full package of things that I do as well as interviews and stuff like that, and we included it on there because my accountant was like, "If you include this, they'll leave you alone." I was like, "Okay, but who cares? Like, this is obviously legit." Anyway, that was a way stupid tangent. I'm sorry. Um, so I moved to Finland because I met a girl on World of Warcraft, and the silliness of that first story is that I was riding around in Orgrimmar on a very special mount, and this girl said to me, "Hey, nice mount." I was the leader.
Oh my god.
I was the leader of a big guild at the time, so I ignored this person because I'm like, "Who cares? I've got a nice mount. I don't give a shit." Oh, I should have bleeped myself. But
It's
and
okay.
then after ignoring this person, they were like, "It's very rude to ignore people, you know." So I was like, "Oh damn, I'm being called out by this person." So I was like, "Oh, sorry, I was at the toilet." Clearly, I wasn't. I was just being a douchebag. And then, like after about 2 hours of conversation in game, this girl was like, "Hey, we should get a coffee sometime." And I was like, "What? Like you live in Finland, I live in England." She was like, "Don't worry, I'll fly over." So like 2 weeks later, she flew over. And then we, got to know each other, and yeah, I moved out to Finland. So the original plan was gonna be because my parents were annoyed that I was being a slacker and not doing any job or anything like that at home. So they said, "Hey, we're gonna give you some money, and you can go somewhere for 6 months, and you can, basically work there and effectively work your way back to England, right? Like as a little exploring the world, finding yourself thing." So they wanted me to go to Australia. Balls to that. That's way too far away, right? So I was like, no, no, no. Hey, why don't I go to Finland? Because my girlfriend is there. So I did. And yeah, and it was really hard to find a job in Finland because the language is bloody hard. Wouldn't have been as hard in Australia, but no, it's too far.
Yeah, so I assume then that's when you started doing StarCraft commentary around that time?
Yeah. Because as I say, getting a job in Finland was really, really difficult. So there was I needed to find some way to keep me busy. And then StarCraft 2 was coming out, and I was watching a load of YouTube videos, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
And I remember you were part of Mouse Sports as well as like their commentator, right?
Yeah. I I think even to this day, they still owe me something like maybe 600 or 700 euros from like commentating on their channels. And obviously, I never saw it. But then again, back then, I was kind of stupid. I didn't really know what invoicing was like to these companies. So I was probably being really slacky and lazy with that. Uh, And to me at the time, that kind of money was huge money. Like
Yeah.
600, 700 euros at that time, like 10 years ago, I was like, holy moly, that could buy me so many things in Finland. Even when I was living in Finland, even buying one energy drink per week was a luxury, right? I was like, holy moly, I get to
Yeah.
have an energy drink. I'm going to have a sick gaming session. Yeah, let's go. So, yes, that's how scarce money was for me at the time.
So how did you find StarCraft then? Like you just stumbled into the game one day, or like do you remember specifically? Especially starting to do commentary, right? Because like you were like streaming and stuff.
Hmm. So I guess I found StarCraft 2 because the funny thing is that I mentioned prior that Warcraft 2 and StarCraft 1 were the thing that my uncle played. So he really kind of got me and my brother into RTS gaming. So we played that. But a lot of my RTS background or of playing extensively comes from Warcraft 3 as well as Red Alert 2. In Red Alert 2, I played a lot online. In Warcraft 3, I only played really custom games online. Didn't really play much ladder, but um, but then when StarCraft 2 was coming out, obviously I was kind of a big Blizzard fan. You know, I'd played tons of World of Warcraft all the time. But when StarCraft 2 was coming along, I was like, okay, this game looks awesome. I love RTS. I love Blizzard. This is the game I kind of want to be involved in. And then I started watching YouTube videos of like Husky and HD, and thinking, wow, these guys are making tons of money, in inverted commas, I guess, tons of money just talking about StarCraft on YouTube. And I thought, I think I could do that. Turns out I couldn't do it to the amount of subscribers that those guys got, but slowly I started, making videos literally every day. I think before I even got paid to do anything, I'd made 300 games of videos, to try and, you know, just put it out there as kind of a portfolio, as it were.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just did one every day, kept going. And my first ones are shocking. They are bad. But
Are
you
they
gotta do
still
what
out
you.
there if somebody wanted to see?
They are, but I don't advise anyone goes and sees them. I'm tempted to delete them because they're just horrific. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not as bad as you think. Okay, I got a photo here. I don't know what year this is from, but can you tell us exactly what was going on?
Oh yes, the most famous photo of James. Yes. Oh, geez, Louise. So, let me fully explain this photo. Uh, Long hair. I was in bands and I really liked heavy metal music. Um, I guess I had the sunglasses because I was just driving at the time. The hoodie, obviously, World of Warcraft. Big fan of World of Warcraft. Still playing it. Still playing classic. Guild leader, raid leader, even to this day. I miss that hoodie. It was a zip down. I miss it, and I don't know where it is anymore. Uh, So the photo is not taken by anybody. It's taken by me. There is a tripod and a camera set up as I was. I don't know why I was taking pictures of myself in this vein. Ridiculous. Now, the dilapidated wall you're seeing behind me is actually the kitchen that is still in the house that we own in Gargrave. And this was taken about 12 years ago. And to this day, my dad has still not replace the kitchen. The wall is still like that. 12 years later, Dad, you're ridiculous as a human being. Uh,
Is he gonna watch
and,
this?
and I don't know, probably not. He's too busy himself. Um, so that's kind of everything that went into the orchestration of this picture. I thought this picture was really cool. It turns out anything you put on the internet still survives and lingers, and then people Google you, and then they find this on DeviantArt. I think, you know what? I'm gonna check if my DeviantArt is still there. Kaelaris. No, 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 it won't be. It'd be James
Yeah, there
Carroll.
was some photo of you with like a guitar or something, if I remember, also like an instrument.
The guitar. Oh no,
Yeah,
it's still here.
I think I saw some photos of you like that kind of made you look like you're a musician or something. No, wasn't
I
there
mean, I
something
was
like
a
that?
musician,
Oh yeah,
like,
I know.
yeah.
Well, this
Um,
photo is like pretty explicit.
Yeah, yeah. So I found my DeviantArt, jamescarroll.deviantart.com. I used to really like nature photography and some other stuff as well. Um, there's not some bad photos in here, but there's a lot of dumb photos of me. Actually, now that I've said this link, don't go to this link. People are
Too late.
people are gonna go to this link.
Oh, you were trying to do photography and stuff as well?
Yeah. So before I moved to Finland, I actually worked in a photography shop, selling cameras and stuff like that. So I was kind of into cameras and everything, um, and just nature photography in general, and finding forms that were a little bit different. And I tried my hand at it, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, to be honest. I don't know why I really fell out of it. Like it was just kind of, everything gets ahead of you and stuff comes along and you're doing other things and you just kind of give it up. But yeah, I really enjoyed photography for a long time.
Um, at some point, you cast a best of 69 between Snoot and Baby Nights. What the
Yeah.
hell was the story there exactly? Like, how did this even come to be?
So I think there might be the Team Liquid thread somewhere at some point. I want to find this as well. Team Liquid BO69 Snoot Baby Night. So I guess I was kind of, was it by Poker Strategy? Oh, okay, I found the thread. Um, yeah, they basically asked. They said that they wanted to do a best of 69, and they kind of wanted to find a commentator to do it. Now, of course, doing a best of 69 as a single commentator is stupid, and nobody should ever do it solo, especially. However, so the plan originally was I was going to do the first half, and then Base Trade afterwards was going to come in and do the second half. I think it was Base Trade. Um, God, this thread. It's so stupid. Because Baby Knight and Snoot really liked each other at the time, I think. Like, just, as friends, obviously. Um, and they wanted to do a long. Oh, no, it was Imba TV that was going to do the second half. Huh. Do you remember that name? I only remember that name after reading it.
Yeah, I remember the name, but I don't remember who it was specifically.
Yeah. Maybe that was Rifkin. Maybe that was the name before the base trade. I don't even know anymore. Anyway, so yeah, they wanted to do a best of 69. So I was like, you know what? I'll cast that. That's fine. And I actually went into the old Cologne studio that we used to cast in the old location, and started commentating it from a really early time. And it was draining. It was really draining. But then
How
I
long?
got about half. Huh?
How long was it?
I think it was like 13 hours in total, but like 7 or 8 hours in solo casting, I was like, you know what? I could do this all. So let's just do it. So I was like, sorry, Ember TV, I'm not giving it up. Let's just go. Let's do everything. So I kept going. And the thing is that the cool thing about that best of 69 was that the maps were all different. It was 69 different maps. It wasn't quite like just, flicking around on the same map pool like the 7 or 8 maps that are in the map pool. No, they found the most ridiculous maps to play some of these games on, and there were some stupid strategies. I wonder if the VOD's anywhere.
How did you eat?
Um
That's my first question. If I would have to cast for even for like 5 hours, I'm always thinking like, how am I gonna eat? Like at what point? Because I'm gonna
I
get hungry for sure.
I think because what I used to do a lot in the Cologne studio, especially in the early days, is that I mean, even when I was working for ESL in the early days, I wasn't really making that much money, like a few €1,000 a month or something like that. Nothing spectacular. Um, I was, especially in the early years, I was just happy to be there. Like I really wasn't thinking much about the idea of this being a business. I was just happy to be there. So I think in those early days, a lot of the times I would just like make some sandwiches and bring them in with me, and just every so often during breaks, I would just like chew down on them. Um, I mean, I used to do that in some qualifiers as well. I think did I bring sandwiches in when we were casting together? I think I did sometimes, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I think.
Eh,
Yeah, at some point when we were going to the office, you kept bringing like the. I
like
couldn't really tell exactly what sandwich it was, but you had your Tupperware with your toasted bread, and like
yeah,
whatever a bland-looking sandwich was inside. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know how good it was, but yeah,
Always cheese and ham. Always cheese and ham. That was it. Probably.
keeping it simple.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, you already. I thought that was probably during the time you were in Finland, but no, like you already talk about it. Like you moved to Germany after that. Do you remember how that move happened? I'm guessing ESL probably reached out to you and said they wanted to hire you as a commentator. Like, was there any hesitation?
Um. I so when I started commentating, when I'd moved to Finland, so I was in Finland for 3 years, and I think I started commentating about a year and a half into being in Finland, when I was just like, well, we're living in like a small apartment. We're not, I'm not making any money. I need to start doing something. And my now ex girlfriend at the time, and my girlfriend was making all the money and supporting us. So when I started commentating, sorry if I'm going on for too long with these answers. Just stop me whenever. Is
Actually, this is great.
Okay, fair play. Um, there was a moment when I knew 100% I could make this my job. Like, maybe it was, ridiculous to be so confident, but I knew I could do it. So after doing all of the, portfolio building, and then being on Mouse Sports and doing some online cups and stuff like that, my then strategy was talk to the guy, figure out my niche. And it was being an English commentator in Finland. So I did some of the smaller Finnish tournaments, like Land Trek, for example, and the same organizers did Asus ROG, and then I did Asus ROG, and then I was casting. I was going to do the B stream, just bring in my own setup, do the B stream, but they were like, "We've got no place to do a B stream, so you can come on the A stream for a while and do some casts." So I was like, "Holy moly!" So that was casting with Mr. Bitter as well as Caldor at the time. Mr. Bitter, so we cast Mr. Bitter. He was like, "Hey, you're pretty good." And this was around the time that him and Rotterdam were going to transition over to do NASL, leaving ESL. So obviously ESL had a bit of a spot there open. Mr. Bitter then recommended me to go over to do ESL. So if it wasn't for Mr. Bitter, I don't think I'd be there. Or if it was for them not going over to NASL, I don't think I'd have been there. Um, and there was no apprehensiveness about the move or anything like that from my side of things. Obviously, it was a little bit um, that the relationship in Finland was kind of breaking down a little bit. I like to consider myself a pretty calm person, and unfortunately, there was like some anger issues there that kind of made the move to Germany a little bit easier, because the relationship was breaking down, which is unfortunate, because I don't hold anything against her, and I don't really think she holds anything against me. But we still talk occasionally and stuff like that. But so that made the move a lot easier. And then I remember the first time I went to Germany to actually like figure out, living situation and everything. And Ollie Losef, right?
Yeah.
Who was one of the guys at ESL working as one of the producers. So he picks me up from the airport in his bloody Audi R8. And I'm like, oh no, what is going on? Like, this guy's pulled up in some bloody supercar to pick me up from the airport. I look like some ragtag weirdo with some bags. Um, and then he gets on the highway and we're going like 200 billion miles an hour. And I'm like, am I gonna die before I even start this job? I don't know. Uh, so yeah, and then we had to find apartments and everything like that. And that's so there was no apprehension in the move. I was very excited for it, even if I was getting paid a whole like 2,000 euros a month. I was like, ah, esports money, this is amazing. I'm living the dream. So yeah, that was how everything started.
Was there anyone that's at this time, or maybe before or after that, that you looked up to in terms of like commentary, like that was like an inspiration where you're like, I want to emulate some of what this person does and do this kind of commentary, and I like that.
So I think the only person I could probably bring up as somebody that I was looking up to at the time was maybe Artosis. But even then, um, I didn't have many heroes or anything like that, or people that I was looking up to, because I liked to. Well, I was always kind of the person that if we were in like World of Warcraft, for example, I would always be the person that kind of ended up in the leadership role or something like that, to get people and ferry people towards where they were supposed to be going. So I kind of like wanted to be my own person, like, and try and find my own way in a lot of things. There was always things I would assimilate from other people, but I never really saw them as like as a figure, to idolize per se. I just kind of, I guess I picked gravitated towards Artosis because he was just kind of likable, like I don't think there's ever really been a broadcast where I've watched of Artosis thinking that he's not likable,
Oh, except his own
Probably.
stream.
Oh no, that's 10 times more likable. Give me anger
I'm
all
kidding.
day. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's great. Um, and then, so you started doing some heroes as well. I guess
Mm,
like, so something that people might not necessarily know is that you play a lot of games. You play a lot of games and you watch a lot of games. Like when I think
mm.
of you, I always think of like the guy who watches everything. You know? Like, did you ever see that Fast and Furious? I think it was, or like, yeah, I think it was Fast and Furious. Was the villain is like this guy is like, do you know why they call me the crazy pig? It's because I got eyes everywhere. I see everything. I always think
I
of you
couldn't
as
think
like
that, but
this guy with like 6 monitors at home, and you're watching all StarCraft, all Warcraft, all of these games, and
yeah.
you never miss anything because every time there's a tournament broadcast, I see you there in the chat. So like you're just watching everything.
Mm. Yes. Was there a question to this?
I forgot where I was going. Shit. Yeah. So I know
You're
you
right.
started. Yeah, you started doing some heroes. So like, how did this happen? You just like, I'm guessing, played the game and then kind of liked it, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna cast this," or
So there's multiple. I suppose there's multiple reasons to me moving towards heroes. So first and foremost, and I should preface everything with this, is that I only ever really work on games that I enjoy. Some people say, "Oh, you're doing this game, you're doing that game, like you're doing these small things or whatever." But it's like almost every single project I've ever worked on is games that I enjoy. It's not just like me going where the money is, or me figuring out what's my next business move. There is a certain element of business to it, but I just enjoy the games that I do. And a long time ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, Richard Lewis asked me, mate, why don't you go and do Dota 2 or something like that? You'd be big or this stuff. But it's like, yes, it would be, I probably could go and do it if I wanted to do it. But it's not even though I'd spent a lot of hours playing Dota 2, it's not the game at the time that I wanted to do. So, and I didn't really need to. So when Heroes came about, there were a few things. One, it's a Blizzard title, and I was enjoying all Blizzard titles at the time. I played a little bit of Hearthstone, even not as much as World of Warcraft and Starcraft. But Here's the Storm comes along. Here's the Storm for me was the game that gelled. Like it was the only game that could bring in all of these characters from all of these universes that I loved and kind of have them fight against one another. The idea of Illidan fighting against Kerrigan, stuff like that was super cool to me, and I was all about that. And technically speaking, Blizzard was one of the only companies that could, in theory, take these heroes and make them what they were supposed to be, right? Like Dota 2 and League of Legends, they were kind of just borrowing ideas from a lot of what was about like World of Warcraft and what was going on in those. Um, so I wanted to do Heroes of the Storm. I started playing it. I really enjoyed it. I was playing it at a pretty decent level, to be perfectly honest, at the beginning. Not quite pro level by any stretch of the imagination, but a decent enough level. And I wanted to, yeah, I was still commentating full time, not really doing any hosting by that point. So I was like, you know what? Let's branch out. Let's do a little bit more. There might be some opportunities here. And another reason why I wanted to do a different game as well is because I wanted to try and step out of the shadow of some of the people that were at the very top in StarCraft 2. There was never going to be a moment for me where I would ever ascend beyond the Artosises and Tastelesses in the StarCraft 2 universe, right? That was never going to happen and never will happen because that's just the hierarchy of StarCraft 2 broadcasting and commentary. So for me, a goal was I want to cast grand finals, right? Um, and in Heroes of the Storm, that was the potential possibility at the time. So I thought, let's give this a shot, and that's uh, the enjoyment of the game and that element put together really kind of moved me forwards down that path.
I think yeah, the community was also great in Heroes of the Storm. Like the players in
Mm,
particular. Like for me, obviously there was a few ex Warcraft 3 players. I remember when I went to events, but then I got to meet all these new guys that I didn't really know. You know, like all the Swedish players that were on Fnatic, guys like BKB. You know, like
yeah, yeah,
that are just like really cool. And Mene, for example, from France,
yeah.
became like a good friend of mine.
He
I'm
plays on
guessing it
my
was
WoW server.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was the same for you, especially because It doesn't happen very often, but for once there was some very competitive UK guys with Bakery and Snitch and stuff,
Yeah.
which did end up becoming some of your good friends. So, do you remember exactly like how did you start hanging out more and more with these guys, and did it
A
just
bakery
happen?
and Snitch and those guys.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like
I
how
mean,
good friends are you with them nowadays as well?
well, me and Snitch still play quite a bit of games together, actually. What were we playing? We played Terraria with each other when there was the most recent update, which was like a few months ago. Um, we still have me, Bakery, and Dreadnought. We still have like a little Twitter group that we chat with each other every so often and things. But Bakery now is living in America. He's a busy boy over there. Snitch is in Germany, he's in Cologne, and just streaming every day wherever he can. And Dreadnought, I think it moved away from the West Coast. He's on the East Coast now of America doing some other tournament stuff. So everybody's kind of moved on, as it were. But that little group that we had, especially when we had like world championships, like the mid-season brawl, which was always in Sweden over at DreamHack, or BlizzCon finals, that little group of four, we kind of like, it was always nice to see each other, and yeah, I still like talking to those guys a lot. We were all just really sarcastic. We were three sarcastic Brits and one American that would normally be the target of the sarcasm. So we would just bounce off each other. And I'm sure at some point Dreadnought got all annoyed at it, but obviously you can't admit that you're annoyed at it because then we'll just do it more. And
Yeah.
that's how Brits do things, I suppose. But what you said, like having Brits actually do well at games, that was a really nice thing for me to have, especially since they were like nerdy kids as well. They won't say that they're nerdy kids, but they're nerdy kids. It was nice to have at tournaments that when they were doing they're really well in the game as well, because something about the British humor and the British sarcasm, uh, it kind of stays in that bubble almost. It's sometimes hard to have that with non-native speakers, I suppose you could say. So that was nice.
And so to this day, like if you think on like your Heroes of the Storm commentating career, like from the start to the end, are you happy with how it went, or are you disappointed with how it ended with the, I guess, HGC ending, and like, yeah, just what's your take on like all of this, your career, and then the way HGC ended, with just kind of being like, for those who don't know, HGC was like the circuit for Heroes of the Storm, and then
Mm.
from one day to another, Blizzard said, "That's it. There's no more circuit, pretty much," and like they ended everything. Like the broadcast, the people that were commentating full time on it suddenly like were out of a job. The pro gamers that were relying on this to make a living also uh, kind of got left in a very bad spot. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, like imagine that you're playing a game full time and then suddenly it's like there's no more circuit. It's like, what do? Do you switch to another game? Do you still try
Mm.
to make this work as streaming? So what was
So
your own experience with all that?
by that time, um, I was kind of, I was a little bit out of Heroes to a certain degree. So I like to think that I'm pretty good at seeing the writing on the wall a little bit earlier than some people that are willing to stick with the game. And um, it's not like I ever didn't stick with the game. I still enjoyed the game, but I was annoyed at certain choices that they were making. Um, I think it was probably, I'm trying to think if it was 2017 or 2018, maybe even a little bit early, maybe 2016. So Blizzard offered me a full-time position casting HGC in America, which would mean that I would have to have moved over to America to do it. Um, However, the money was just not right. If you're wanting to live in West Coast, California, things like that, the money was not right. I think they offered me something like 85,000 or 90,000 a year to do it, which included, by the way, pay for BlizzCons, pay for the other lands that would go on, not just the circuit. Um, but realistically, to me, if I was going to move over to California and be in that Irvine area and all this other stuff, personally, I would want something like 140, 150,000 bare minimum, because the expenses of living over there is very high.
Okay,
Health
you need
insurance.
a car, like.
need a car. Health insurance is stupid, literally stupid, compared to what we have here in Europe. All these extra things. You're far away from your entire family. You don't have as much of a safety net. All this stuff. So I was like, thank you, but no thank you. And then as time went on, I would continue to do some of the league stuff for the some of the lands for them. This is when I moved into the host role a bit more. I ended up hosting a lot of their bigger tournaments as stuff went on, but I didn't agree with the way that they were handling the league. I didn't agree with the way that they were handling external content added to the league. And
So,
this all
any chance you can be more specific about this?
um you can't just from my perspective, you can't just make a league. You can't just like for a lot of these esports, especially fledgling esports or esports that are kind of floundering a little bit at the community roots level. You can't just be like, let's do a league. This is going to solve all of our problems. Almost always, I think a league is not the right answer for esports right now, based on my experiences that have
So
gone
how
on.
would you have done it?
I would have stuck to circuit probably, um, and just had kind of one-off events, especially if you can partner with like external tournament organizers like ESL, like DreamHack, like MLG, all of these places. And actually, this came at a time where they just bought up MLG as well, like a year or two before. They maybe like saved them like from going under, and I think obviously they'd saved them because were a little bit worried that ESL America is now in North America, and they didn't want them to really have a monopoly on external events and partners to be able to work with. Anyway, that's by the by. That's a really long topic. Um, so I didn't agree with a lot of this stuff. And when I didn't agree with like how they were handling the league, how they were doing all this stuff, and I really didn't agree with them introducing a character that was not of any of the other franchises. They introduced Orphea, and I was really mad at that time, because I was like, the whole point of this game is to bring in characters from these other universes and have them clash together. So don't start creating original content. Nobody gives a crap, even though some people will argue that they do give a crap. Um, so I kind of saw the writing on the wall. The Blizzard was going down a really weird path at the time, as we all well know, given the past couple of years. Um, and their league format was not doing well. So when it wasn't doing well, a year and a half before things were cancelled for Heroes of the Storm, I was already thinking to myself, right, well, I'm doing StarCraft, that's great. I can do the Heroes tournaments, that's great. What's next? What is coming next? And PUBG was on the horizon, right? So I was like, could do some of that. Um, but so I was very safe. I was very settled. Even though when all of this got cancelled, I still got messages being like, oh, I'm so sorry, James. I'm sure you'll land on your feet somewhere. I'm like, guys, I'm fine. Jeez Louise, I am the most fine compared to a lot of the other guys that were involved in this. Because I think in the last year I'd only hosted like Mythic mid-season brawl or something like that at DreamHack. Um, but for all the other guys, it was a terrible experience, and it's an awful indicator of what could potentially happen to any game at any point in time. And Blizzard facilitated that. Blizzard opened that door, which can't really be shut anymore. I don't think anything. Can you recall any other game that just disappears in an instant quite like that? I I have a hard time.
I guess technically with Warcraft 3, it's also happened a little similarly, where
Mm,
like everybody moved to StarCraft 2, but it's totally different. It's like the new RTS came out, you know that all the support is gonna go towards that, so everybody moves from one game to another. Or
yeah.
like not everybody, but like most people. But yeah, like
That's
I've,
kind of like a voluntary migration though, compared to a we are stopping this now, like
yeah.
right. And when it did happen, I know that a lot of the Heroes guys, be it players and commentators and stuff, were distraught. And I had a lot of messages from a lot of players, a lot of commentators about, hey, you know, I need some advice. Where can I go next? What can I do next? Because they'd seen me transition from game to game. Maybe I was going to be a little bit of aid wherever I could be, and I tried to be in the very limited capacity I could be. But it was it was a bit gut wrenching, if I'm honest. And there's not many moments in esports that I would consider to be gut wrenching. Um, Bad things happen, yes, from time to time, but not quite to the effect where hundreds of people just got put out and they were told, you know, good luck in an instant. Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Like, I was really shocked because I think like it's one thing to downscale or
Yeah.
like to say like we're gonna do these leagues from now it's gonna be way smaller and stuff, but now it's just like that's it. That was the end. That was the last. And then it came like with the shock too. It was like you said like you kind of saw it coming, but I guess as somebody who didn't maybe follow the scene as closely, to me it was very sudden.
Right.
Like I
Right.
would never expect something like this to happen, and I think for a lot of people in the scene as well, it's like from one day to another you got these big leagues that like pay the players. I don't know the exact system, but I guess they were getting some sort of salary or like money for sure for competing in
Hmm.
the HGC and all that, and then all of a sudden it's like they don't get anything anymore. So it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I know that you have a big interest in game design as well. Like many times when we're in California and like you met with the Blizzard game designer, like I remember like you were so excited, like you came over and you started telling me, like I was like you're like, oh my god, I talked to him about game design and like he really listened to what I said. I love game design, blah blah, blah. I was like, okay, this is next level nerd right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really like it. Like, can you tell us more about just all the game design stuff? And have you ever been close to maybe trying to get into game design? Because I remember you talking to me about this too, about maybe potentially taking a job as a game designer.
Mm. So yes, it's like a fluctuating interest, which technically is not enough right now to be able to say yes, this is my next step. Um, so there's been a few moments, especially through my career, which I've been, when you're a host and commentator and you're appreciated by a lot of these people in these companies, you can, use that privileged position to be able to talk to these people a little bit closer. So I've gotten the opportunity to talk to people like Chris Ziggedy, Tim Morton, for example, David Kim, all of these guys who really appreciated my work. And back, I really appreciated their work. So I got to talk to them about game design. Um, there was many days, as you're mentioning, where I got to go into the Blizzard studios and like sit down with them for a day and talk to a whole team about game design, which was very very fun and very eye-opening as well to a certain degree about like what actually goes into all of these decisions and stuff. And actually one time I sat down with Chris Ziggedy in the, I think there was the World of Here's the Storm office at the time, and talked to him straight about like, how would you advise me directly to be able to get a job here, for example, because back then getting to Blizzard was my end goal before all of this ridiculousness happened and all this craziness. Now, going to Blizzard is not my end goal, which I'm probably sure doesn't surprise too many people, all things considered. Even though I still love the idea of the company, I just don't like the way it is in these past couple of years, and I think a lot of people can empathize with that, and how it is currently. But yeah, sometimes I will like open Unity and mess around with it and stuff, and I've created little games here and there, nothing spectacular, but it is something that maybe in the future, like if I get off my lazy butt, like that would definitely pique my interest and be something to transition onto. But for the foreseeable future, I just enjoy doing this. I just enjoy talking about video games, which in the end also allows me to just play video games all the time, which is my dream scenario. Like all of this is just like behind me is not real. Like all of this doesn't matter. Like the Switch here and the PS4 there and the PC in front of me, those are the three things that like matter when it comes to like what I'm doing in my free time, and obviously like relationships and whatnot and stuff like that, and my dog. But everything gaming is just what I want to be doing, and talking about games is what I want to be
Like, do you ever think about if one day you get bored of like hosting and casting, or like are you just like so far away from that? I remember I got this question all the time when I was a pro gamer. I remember like it's annoyed me. People were always like, "What are you gonna do next? What are you gonna do next?" And I was thinking, "Shut up! I'm enjoying myself. I don't want to think about what I'm gonna do next." There's like
doing.
a
Right, right.
thousand options. I could be a coach. I could be a commentator. I could do anything. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I've not really thought too much about the next step beyond hosting and commentary. I got the opportunity to commentate a few days ago, actually, for a StarCraft, which was, I thought I was going to be crap, but I wasn't too bad. Like, I don't think I was as rusty as I thought I was going to be, which is really nice. But then again, I've had basically years to think about how I was going to commentate next when I got to commentate, because I've done so much hosting. But I just like being involved in the tournaments, in the productions. Um, I like being involved in pro gaming. So yeah, I mean, this stuff isn't going away anytime soon. And as long as like I'm relevant in scenes, I'm always going to be able to make a decent living off of it. So yeah, I think I'm just sticking with that for now. Pretty sure.
Um, I don't think too many people that watch this will know this, but your mother is very active on Twitter. One day I noticed that she was following me, and I was like, "Is that your mom?" And you were like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "Wow, she's very active. She has like a lot of favorites. Like she's always favoriting any tweet that you're tagged in, basically. So she
Mm.
follows you very closely. So I guess she's like the proud mom. I don't. I don't really have that personally. Like my parents, I cannot imagine them installing Twitter ever. So
Really?
how has it been for you to have like your mom supporting you and stuff on Twitter and like tweeting regularly at you?
It's yeah, it's interesting. She's very active. Not only right. So my parents had two children, me and my brother. However, I do like to think my mum has a third child, which is this John Antoine gentleman that she likes as a singer. For
Yeah.
anybody that doesn't know, John Antoine is a tenor, basically effectively what is an opera singer, I suppose. And that's not the way to categorize him, but he's a tenor. And my mum loves this person undyingly. She is obsessed. So yes, she does tweet at me sometimes. However, her Twitter feed every single morning will
I just
be
checked it today.
every single morning will be 15 to 20 retweets at the same time about this guy, which is interesting.
He's a great
Um,
singer, though. I checked one of his videos.
he's a very good singer. I'm not denying that. Very good singer. But geez, Louise. Yeah. But beyond that, it's nice to have a mum that is supportive of stuff. She actually watches a lot of stuff. And there'd be moments where I'd go back at Christmas and she'd be like, "Oh, how's Manuel?" And I'm like, "What? Do you mean Grubby?" She's like, "Yeah, how's Grubby?" I'm like, "What?" And then she'd be like, "They got a new puppy, you know." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, mum. Yeah, yeah." I'm like, and then she'll bring up something that like I didn't even know. Like she'll be like, "Oh yeah, Cassandra's growing this in the garden." I'm like, "What?"
She
I,
knows
I
everything.
yeah,
She
I don't
sees all.
understand. She follows, she follows a lot of people in esports because of it, and she's just kind of curious. I didn't think my parents were going to be supportive at the beginning, and definitely at the beginning, I think they had their apprehensions and um, concerns with the route that I was taking. But then eventually, they realized that I was being able to stand on my own 2 feet with the financially, and now I would say I'm doing very well for myself. So I think they're quite proud of kind of the progress that's been made, which is nice. There was one moment when I went back to England and my dad picked me up from the airport, and he almost like apologized to me because when I was younger, he would always just be like, "Stop playing those games; they're never going to get you anywhere." Um, but obviously, you know that he never needed to say these things. He never needed to apologize to me because back then, how could he have ever known that this is going to be somewhere where I could be making a very decent living, with perseverance and stuff. So it wasn't required. It's nice, but definitely not required. And I can understand their concerns for me at the beginning.
I'm curious, was there ever an event you went to and you were like, holy shit, like I've like realized my dream. Like I've always wanted to do this. Now I'm here at like one of the sickest events. Was there ever any event like this? It could be more than one as well, or was there one in particular?
So I guess my first BlizzCon I attended was definitely a big, big goal. After watching them before I even, was doing commentary, going to my first BlizzCon was important for me. The first BlizzCon I ever almost got to was something that was a bit of a sting, a burn to me, because obviously I did not go to this BlizzCon that I'm referring to. And I think it probably had to do with the fact that even though at the time it was back in maybe like 2013, 2012, where technically I, alongside other people, I'd commentated the most WCS on the planet. Like not even Tasteless or Artosis could hold because I'd done all these regions and everything like that. But I was not invited to that BlizzCon. And that was a bit soul destroying at the time. Looking back at it now, it's kind of like, whatever. But I was very, very unhappy with not being invited to that BlizzCon. But there were just bigger names than me. It's by the by. But then the next BlizzCon comes along and I get to go to it, and I was just beyond elated. I'm going to this event that I've watched many times. I'm going to get to watch the opening ceremonies. I'm going to get to meet some of these people. That was very cool. Um, so the BlizzCon was important. I'm trying to think of other big gigs that were very important to me. There was obviously like PUBG gave me a lot of big stadium events, which is kind of cool. So I guess anytime I ever got to be put on in a stadium, aside from BlizzCons, was always something that was really, really nice. And I suppose Katowice became very important to me as well. If I think about it,
Yeah.
I mean, I am still. I tout this as something that's cool, but it's really not that cool. I'm still the only English talent to ever do every single Katowice. Everybody else has missed one or not done one. I think you have only missed one because
Yeah,
you were
one or
having.
two.
Yeah. But I am literally across all games. I am the only English talent to do every Katowice. So I'm kind of proud of that. Oh, the Olympics event in Pyongyang. That was Pyeongchang.
Pyeongchang.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Pyongyang is in North Korea.
I know. I don't know why I'm thinking like my brain's muddled. But yeah, that was very cool as well.
Yeah.
So to be able to say that I'm the only English commentator that did every Katowice, and I'm like the first host, or we are all the first talent to be able to do an event endorsed by the Olympics. I think that was really cool as
Yeah.
well.
Were you nervous in Pyeongchang or not? Because there was the Olympic Committee, and we kept being told, like, guys, the Olympic Committee is here, and I was like, who the hell is the Olympic Committee? I never thought of this before. I'm just here trying to cast some games. Stop putting pressure on me, you know? Like,
No, not really. No nerves anymore. No nerves for any event anymore, really. I think maybe if I moved into a new game and I was doing an event for the first time, maybe I would have a little bit of jitters. But especially when you're in the host role now, I think it takes a certain degree of arrogance to do the job. I'm not a total douchebag, but I'm a little bit of a douchebag. It's fine. Um, so I think, especially when you're in the host role, you've got to be ultra confident. You like if you when you're watching a host, if they don't seem confident about what they're doing, it kind of is a little crack in the picture of the show a little bit, I would say.
yeah.
I remember the Olympic Committee coming round, and it was the Olympic Committee for Japan, I think, because they were then going to do some for the next one that was coming round, right? So they were there. The only thing I was annoyed about was that the fact that they gave me that little poxy preview monitor. They were like, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
can I have a big preview monitor, please? And they were like, you've got one. And it was like a 20-inch monitor, like 10 meters away. I'm like, guys, well, I can't see what the hell that says. But yeah, so yeah, no, it was good. It was good.
You know, like for every event, we kind of get a dress code. I mean, it's always like, if we get, what is it called? Like a guidebook or whatever, like, an email with all the infos on everything.
Mm,
Like we don't always get it for every event, and then if we get it, it's like kind of vague and stuff. So I remember I didn't take leather shoes, like proper leather shoes. Like most StarCraft events we go to, I guess you don't really see our shoes. We're just behind the desk. So it doesn't matter. We can wear sneakers. We can be comfortable because we're going to be there all day.
yeah.
And so I didn't bring leather shoes to Pyeongchang. And then I had to do the telestrator thing with the TV where I explained the game and stuff. And then I was in sneakers. I was like, oh God, like I remember I went to a mall and they had no. I'm like size 45 European, so they didn't have any shoe this big.
Oh my
for
god.
leather shoes. So I was like, oh God, I gotta wear my sneakers and stuff. The Olympic Committee is gonna hate it and stuff. Like it's gonna be so bad. I want StarCraft to be in the Olympics. So anyway, I'm about to do a segment where I'm gonna try and break down what ZVZ is like. So I'm gonna put all the units I rehearsed in my head so many times. I was like Zerglings, Banelings, then you have Roaches, then Mutas come into play, and then maybe, just maybe, we'll see some Hydralisks, maybe some Lurkers, and I'm explaining what counters what. And as I do that, the Olympic Committee walks in. And I got really nervous. I don't know why. I just saw them there. I was like, oh God, like what if I say something really stupid and stuff? So I don't get nervous very often.
Mm.
But I know that for me, that wasn't necessarily super easy. But yeah, it seems like you handled it well. But I tried hosting stuff like very occasionally, like in a much more casual environment, like Nation Wars or something, or
Mm.
like whatever,
Mm.
even just doing interviews. And it's a completely different challenge. Like people who sit at home and say like, "Oh, he did this wrong or this wrong," they have no idea. Like most people would just like melt down in front of a camera. It's actually incredibly hard. Of course, you can get used to it and stuff, but like we saw Cats make a big mistake on the cast recently, where like he said he said Red Bull instead of Monster, and that's because Roddy was messing with him a little bit before you guys went live, which
Yeah.
people have done with you so many times. I remember one time, I think actually, I made you lose focus a little bit. Like I knew that there was one camera shot where like it was just you and your face, and I was next to you, and I remember I kept leaning like this outside of the camera shot from the stream. So you were looking into the camera, but then you could see one guy in the corner of your eye doing like this, and then looking at you with like these eyes, like these crazy eyes. And I remember you lost focus a little bit for a second, but other than that, in every times that we've tried to troll you or whatever, you've always like managed it pretty well. And I guess it comes from experience as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I mean, the thing is that even I kind of expected a lot of this to happen, especially when I ended up in the host role. But like, there was moments when we would commentate. Me and Apollo would commentate, like in a Katowice, for example, and Carmack would just come up and start like poking you in the hair, unbuttoning your shirt whilst you're in the middle of like a commentary, and I'm just like, okay, right, yes, Carmack, thank you. And there was moments during that I was like slightly thrown off, but obviously people can't see you on the camera, so it doesn't matter. You can just stop talking, and people are like, what's happening? But they don't know. But with the hosting, I feel I'm pretty rock solid for the most part. I'm like, I know as long as a tournament organizer or a producer and stuff like that is telling me either telling me beforehand what's coming up or I have a show rundown, or if they're good about their in-ear comms to me, I feel like I'm rock solid. And even if they're not good with their in-ear comms, I've got so much experience now where like I'll just do what I want and I will just say what I want and everything. And one, they can't stop me because it's live, so it doesn't matter. Like they'll tell sometimes tournaments will say, "All right, we need to do this, 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 and this," and I'll say, "Yes, okay." And I'll sometimes completely ignore what they've said because I think it's rubbish and just do what I want because like they can't stop me in the moment and I know what I'm doing. Like I've done it enough times, right? Um, and then also just say everything with conviction, do everything with conviction because people like the confidence. People want to be guided on a broadcast. So just get on with it. Who cares?
At some point, you started playing PUBG as well, and then you ended up working on the game too.
Mm.
And I guess was it around? I think we're in Poland, and like I was playing a lot of PUBG myself at the time. I remember we were watching a little bit of Doctor Disrespect together and stuff. Was this a goal of yours from the start when you started playing PUBG? You were like, "This is one of the games that I like, and I want to be involved in it."
Hmm. I'm trying to think back. Was it? I'm trying to think back if my first foray into playing PUBG was actually with you. Was it? I can't remember.
No, I don't think it was necessarily with me, but I just
Ah,
know we both had an interest in PUBG.
yeah.
Like that one time we went to Poland, and I think we cast for like 2 weeks or something, maybe it was, or
Some StarCraft qualifiers, right?
yeah, and like we were there for
Mm.
like a long time, and then I remember at the time we had both had an interest in PUBG. We were like when we would go to the office, we would watch a Doctor Disrespect stream and stuff.
Yeah.
That's when he was like number one and stuff.
Mm, mm. So I think my interest for PUBG materialized uh mm, very early in the game's launch. And it's funny because I never really played like Armor or DayZ before or anything like that before it. But I was very into the concept of the game because I liked a film called Battle Royale, which was a Japanese film, which for some reason a lot of people haven't seen, but for some reason a lot of people have seen the Hunger Games, even though Battle Royale is absolutely the original in all of this. Um, so I liked that concept, and then PUBG comes along, and it's a game that's easy to play the BR version of it. Armor and DayZ, you had to jump through hoops, like add mods or go into custom games or whatever. But PUBG was just solely this concept. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. So I wanted to be involved. And every game that I get into now, I kind of always want to be involved as a commentator. And then lo and behold, everyone's like, "Oh, you're really good at hosting. Why don't you do that?" And I'm like, "Yes, I guess I'll take one for the team again and do the hosting bit." But I mean, take one for the team. I still like the hosting. I just like commentating more. So I think I've commentated one game of PUBG ever, even though I've been at literally every big event for them.
So what context was that in?
What, the one game that I commentated?
Yeah.
It was at the Face It Global Summit, which was effectively like there was 3 championships throughout the year, and it was the first one of the year. And there was a like a not a charity game, but there was a game in a break on Vikendi because we weren't playing Vikendi. So I was like, I'll commentate it, and I got to commentate it. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. I would still like to commentate PUBG, to be honest. I think I would do a pretty good job, like because I'm just sat there every tournament, all tournaments. Oops, sorry, I dropped something. I'm there all tournaments, every tournament, watching every game. So it's not like I don't know the gunplay, the maps, the teams rotations. I know all of this stuff
Yeah.
and could easily commentate it, but obviously there are other commentators or people. Nobody's ever given me a chance. So
Have you tried, or like you would have to maybe not host, right? If you were to commentate. So then
yeah,
who hosts? That's the question.
that is a big question. And to a certain degree, I'm kind of protective of the host role a little bit nowadays.
You can't do everything, James.
No, I know.
He like steps into production, like guys, do this.
I'll change the lights. It's fine. Just let me. No, I'm a little bit protective of the host role now as well, which is kind of almost. It's not Stockholm syndrome, but it's kind of close to. Which I've when I see somebody else doing the host role, I'm like, this could have been better. This could have been better. This could have been better. And I know that if I'm doing it, I know that the show will get driven in a certain way. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I just know how the show's gonna go if
Yeah.
I'm doing it. If you get my meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen you prepare actually. Like, not only do you watch a lot of games, but I've seen you prepare for like certain shows and stuff because we've talked about StarCraft 2, Heroes, now PUBG, but you also hosted. I think you hosted a desk for World of Warcraft
I
when there was like.
commentated on World of Warcraft.
Oh, you commentated or you hosted desk?
Yeah.
You commentated.
I got to commentate, yeah. On
Okay.
MSI.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I've seen some of the notes that you take and like how many VODs and stuff you watch to get to prepare and stuff. Like, do you feel like preparation is key for like all of these jobs, or do you think like maybe if you didn't prepare as well, because like obviously you're already watching these games and playing them all the time, but do
Mm.
you feel like the preparation that you do with watching all of the VODs and making a lot of notes give you that extra edge where you're gonna be confident that you can do the best job that you can do?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a few answers to this, so again, sorry, ranty. But if you're hosting, like I know a lot of hosts go into esports gigs, and if they go from game to game, they don't really they feel like they can get away with hosting without knowing much about the game, right? Because that's sometimes how production sees hosts, as the guy who's like a newbie asking the newbie questions. But I feel like if you know the game and if you do a lot of prep, you can ask questions with more substance, more basis, which I think is much nicer. And also, excuse me, it gives me more confidence just in the show, basic in general, to know what I'm talking about. And a lot of that prep is like the 80/20 principle, right? I'll prep pages and pages, but I'll only use 20% of it. I'm not going to blow my load on everything, and if it's not in the right context. um and then for commentary, yeah, I mean, like the World of Warcraft one, for example, when I was doing, so I commentated the MDI, which is the Mythic Dungeon Invitational at the time. Now it's the Mythic Dungeon International. But the dungeons that they were running, it was effectively just dungeons that I'd been playing all the way through the expansion at the time anyway. So I knew the dungeons. It was just a base. It was basically a case of like watching how they do their polls when it comes to VODs, and also doing a few notes on the players, what classes they like, or what results they've had in the past. I just want to know everything, quite honestly. I want to know as much as possible before a show goes live. And happenstance, if that 1% chance of some random fact coming up comes up, then I'll be able to kind of, pivot off the back of that.
You also hosted a Clash Royale event. I remember once upon a time. Like, how did that come to be? Like, it just seems you do every game. You were playing that game as well a bunch. Then you hosted an
Yeah.
event. It had a lot of viewers.
Yeah, it had like 150,000 viewers on YouTube. It was the first ever Clash Royale event over in Helsinki. I actually got to. Technically, I wasn't hosting. I was kind of commentating.
Yeah.
I was commentating. So when I was with ESL, they had a lot of random tournaments coming up, and they had a lot of like fingers and a lot of pies, as it were. So naturally, before there were moments where the ESL guys would come to the commentators and be like, "Do you know this game?" Because they had faith in us because we were their employees, right? So yeah, they asked me, does anyone play this game?" And I was like, "Well, guess what? James plays every game." So yeah, I ended up doing it, and it was a lot of fun. The funny thing is that mobile esports is just, um, I think back then, when was that Helsinki event? Maybe 2015, 2016, something like
Yeah.
that.
I think
That was
something like that.
kind of that was kind of around the time where mobile gaming, especially before that, or mobile esports, it's like scoffed at a little bit. But now, to be perfectly honest, mobile gaming and mobile esports is a huge, huge market and a huge, huge future for esports. It's insane. The PUBG mobile stuff, the stuff that those kids do on mobile is nuts. It is mind blowing to kind of see in practice. I know I know the competitor in you is probably thinking still, haha, mobile games, but truly, they're really good. So, yeah.
Uh, what about the games that you've never got to cast? Like, did you consider? Like, you talked a little bit about Dota previously.
Mhm.
Like, how close were you to ever like consider trying to cast some Dota or like some game like Overwatch? Also, for example, is one of the few Blizzard games that maybe the only Blizzard game that we didn't really see you on. I guess maybe with Hearthstone.
Yeah. I actually did one Hearthstone gig with Red Eye. Me
Of
and Red
course you
Eye
did.
at the Hearthstone gig. It was weird. I kept missing Lethal because I kept missing the Gore Howl on Grom Hellstream. Stupid. That was a long time ago. Anyway, what was I thinking? What was I gonna say?
Overwatch.
Ah, Overwatch. Never really interested. So the thing is that I am very critical of Overwatch as a game. But that's because I come from a position where I played Team Fortress 1 Classic, Team Fortress Classic, and Team Fortress 2 a lot with my brother. My brother still plays it a lot. My brother has thousands and thousands of hours in Team Fortress 2. Um, so for us, the roots of that genre are very much there, and in our opinion, very much better executed there compared to Overwatch. Overwatch, in my opinion, doesn't have much depth from my perspective, as a game, not necessarily as an esport, but just as a game, as a whole. So I've never been that interested in Overwatch personally, and I don't like the way that they designed some things as well.
Isn't it kind of weird how some of the like older games just seem like better
Mm.
in a way? Like look at Quake. Is there
Mhm.
ever gonna be as good as like a first-person shooter in that style? I'm talking like arcade style, like you pick up weapons and stuff and you jump all over the place.
Mm.
Rocket launcher. Is there ever gonna be as good a game as Quake 3 Arena? And like there was like Unreal tournaments. There was like a newer Quake, I think, and now there's Diabotical, but it just feels
Mm.
like the original is like the purest, the best one. Kind of like Smash Melee, right? They can release as many Smash as they want. And I'm
Yeah.
no Smash expert either, but I know enough to know that like if I look at Smash Melee, I'm looking at like the best that Smash is ever gonna be, and that's the oldest one.
I feel like some of these games were almost lightning in a bottle moments, almost. Especially Smash Melee and also Quake 3. Like a lot of games back then couldn't rest on the laurels of having beautiful graphics or a lineage to look back on, right? Like all of these games had to be mechanically sound, like to really prevail. And Quake was definitely that back in the day. And Smash Melee, from my perspective, is a happy accident. Like it's lightning in a bottle, but so much to an insane degree that it is also just a complete accident because the bugs make Smash Melee exciting to watch. Have you ever watched two Smash Melee players play against each other that are new to the game? It is god awful because
They
they are
just spam buttons.
because they well that and also they're slow. They don't understand the movement mechanics. They don't understand wave dashing. They don't understand canceling certain animations. All this stuff. The reason Smash Melee is so much fun to watch in the hands of the best is because of the bugs that exist in the game that are just now features that are in the game. Whereas a lot of new Smash games are very polished. They don't really bugs in those games don't really exist quite like they did in Melee for people to be able to exploit to make themselves faster and faster and faster. Um, I mean, you bring up Smash. This is a game that I've played every iteration of, even before Smash Melee. Even I played Smash 64, right? Like, and I've played Smash Melee, Smash 4, all the Smash Ultimate. I've played all of them. Um, and yeah, the newer ones just technically don't. I mean, they don't even come close to the magic that Smash Melee had. Because I remember playing Smash Melee, grinding trophies for hours and hours and hours, listening to Steal This Album by System of a Down on a repeat for 8 hours a day. Just the most ridiculous binges, like to unlock all the characters, for example, because there was multiple ways to unlock Mewtwo, and one of them was play tons of games, right? Like, so we just sit there unlocking Mewtwo as friends back in the day. It was just good games, good games.
Did you ever, you know, I don't know if this is the right word, but sometimes there is a little bit of politics in casting, right? Like how it's
That's the
decided
right
who's
word.
gonna do what event and stuff. Like I'm sure you've had to deal with this as well. Is there
Mhm.
like what's your take on it all? Do you think it's like not that bad, or do you think like there's some things that like frustrated you along the way?
I have been fortunate um, to not have to deal with too much of it, thankfully. I don't feel like I've ever really had to compete against someone or another for a gig in particular. I think at the early stages of PUBG, there was the potential that Frankie wanted to do a lot of desk hosting stuff for PUBG, and I certainly I'm pretty sure there were one or two gigs that I lost to her for sure. But I wasn't really bitter or have any animosity about it per se. I might have been slightly annoyed at the time that I didn't get the gig, but not really at Frankie, you know. Um, and then of course she's kind of moved on now from PUBG. She's doing other stuff. I think a lot of people's end goal is CS:GO. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people that's their end goal, which I don't know. I don't know if I agree with entirely. Because the thing is, the funny thing is that CS:GO is one of the places that has kind of the most politicking involved in it, right? If you've, back in a little bit earlier, like there was, groups of commentators that were just that kind of groups, and then they will be
Yeah.
like almost against other groups of commentators per se. I think we've been I think I've been pretty fortunate. Like StarCraft, we're all kind of good friends for the most part. Was there really much politicking in StarCraft? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, there was like the one BlizzCon you didn't go to or something like that, or maybe like some finals that
Sure.
sometimes you didn't get to do.
I
Other
may
than
not
that,
have, yeah.
yeah, other than that, it's I don't think it's been too bad.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It was
in StarCraft it's interesting though, right? Because if tasters go to an event, they'll always cast the finals.
mm,
And I remember that at some points it bothered me personally
mm,
because I just felt like, for example, like somebody like Roti that was doing like all the circuit tournaments, like this guy, there was not one tournament he wasn't at.
mhm, mhm.
Honestly, like, and if they had asked him, he'd be there too, like to put on the mic at GSL and start casting there too. So he was doing everything. So I thought that maybe he should be doing the finals, but it's always the question of, are you deserving because you did the most tournaments and all of that,
Mm.
or are the two guys that I consider the best casting duo in the game supposed to be the ones that do it? I remember that at some point I also thought that somebody like Roddy should be doing the finals, but
Yeah,
it didn't bother me too bad. But it's
mm,
just like something that in that moment I thought. Have you ever had something like that, or?
mm. I guess it's kind of why I branched out. It's what I referred to earlier, right? It's like
Yeah.
actually the one of the reasons again why I moved away from well, branched out from StarCraft. I didn't really move away from StarCraft. I've never really moved away from StarCraft. Is because I kind of just wanted to attain those heights, right? And instead of attempting to politic in StarCraft, I was just like, well, Artosis and Tasteless are always going to be at the top. There's no point. So, I mean, I've witnessed quite a bit of politicking in some other games. Like Heroes, for example, had a little bit of it. PUBG has had little bits of it from time to time.
Yeah,
It got
because
really
it's not super established who's supposed to do finals and stuff like that, right?
right.
Like obviously everybody will want to do them for the most part.
Yeah.
Now in StarCraft, like if you go to an event where Tasters are, they're gonna do the finals. Like it's accepted, and I don't think anybody really minds either. But in other games, I don't really know how it works, but from what I've seen, in Heroes, obviously all of these guys were competing with one another. They all wanted to do finals. It's probably the same in CS, even though it did feel like it was established for some time. But now I see like the hierarchy changing a little bit at the top. Yeah, it's always interesting. But I guess we haven't had to deal with this as much ourselves necessarily. But there's been also different things, like not necessarily, with who cast what and finals. I remember like when I moved to Germany to work for ESL, I was supposed to do Heroes and StarCraft. Like that's what ESL wanted me to do. But then I heard that Blizzard wanted people to focus on only one game. So I was like, yeah.
Which boggled my mind, by the way, because somehow I got to do all the games whilst everybody else got told that they had to choose. And it wasn't even like I was just hosting at the time as well. I got to commentate them. I don't know why that was. It was very weird. I take issue with a lot of the old guard of the Blizzard esports department, to be perfectly honest. Now, like a lot of people that weren't there and stuff like that. But I think a lot of some of their decisions were just totally strange, very, very weird. And I think it's not just me that feels that way. If you speak to a lot of the talent that were underneath them, or even players to a certain degree, we're like, what is going on? Like, yeah, I don't want to say true incompetence, but we're borderline there sometimes. And I was very surprised by some of the decisions. Like that one was very strange, and I was totally confused. Like, what? You are like for you or Dan, for example, Dan wanted to do StarCraft and Hearthstone, right? Like, why are they all of a sudden like basically effectively limiting his career options and career potential just because you want them to focus on one game when then somebody else like me gets a different rule completely, right?
Yeah, I never really understood myself, but
Nah,
it is
whatever.
what it is. I remember there was one BlizzCon we cast both Heroes in StarCraft though. That was pretty sick.
Oh, yeah, but didn't we come in for the StarCraft group stage
Yeah, we
because
did we did opening week for StarCraft, but we did the entirety of Heroes after that. So we did 2 games.
yeah, somebody wasn't there. I'm pretty sure somebody
Was
was
it?
like missing, and that's why we had to come in. Weren't like Nick and Dan supposed to come in for the group stages, but then they only come in for the finals, and we have to
Oh
come
yeah,
in?
yeah, yeah. Maybe something like that. Yeah.
I can't remember the reason though, like why they weren't there. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah,
I,
there's been some weird stuff happening sometimes.
I've done that at a few like Katowices as well, like because Katowice is now across effectively 2 weekends, and then they've got the expo and everything like that. So one of the times, I think I did PUBG the first weekend, and then missed the StarCraft rehearsal, which Mark Alberts was not happy about. Uh, but it's like I've done this a million times, Mark. It's gonna
Yeah.
be fine. And
God
then
knows you're gonna do a terrible job if you miss the rehearsal.
and then the day after after doing the PUBG stuff, I came in and we started doing StarCraft like open brackets, and I was like, "Hey guys, yeah, it's me." So that's a lot of work doing multiple events back to back for
Yeah.
different games. That sometimes gets a bit much, but I keep on top of it.
If you ever got asked to do Warcraft 3, casting or hosting, would you do it?
Uh, so I'm in two minds about this. One, I would like to do it, but I think like the community would be. I say your community. Let's say your community because you're a Warcraft 3. You as a whole. Would I think they'd probably be quite hard on me because I don't know. I mean, I could study it, right? Like I could
Yeah.
study the meta and what's going on. Like I know you guys don't like Crypt Lord or whatever, right now. um, but And then the other part of me is like, well, no, will I do it justice? I don't really know the history that well. So that was one thing that also stopped me getting into Dota 2. Like, even though I knew the game that well back in the day, like I don't know all this like big chunk of history that I'm missing. I only know this little bit here. Um, so I could pull it. I could pull it off. I'm pretty sure I could pull it off, definitely. But I don't know if I would do it as much justice as somebody who's been in it the whole time. You know, because they just have the history to their head.
Yeah.
Whereas
I
I'd
think
have.
you'd be really good actually in
You think
Warcraft
so?
3. Yeah, yeah. Whether commentating or desk hosting. I don't know if you watched Anaheim, but Trixler was hosting, and I think the community was like, they liked him, even though like there was a couple things that he said that were like really borderline. Like there is this map called Last Refuge, and he kept saying Last Refugee, and every time I would just look at him and be like, yes, Last Refuge, and then the next time he had to mention it, he still would say Last Refugee. I was like, okay, well, there's just
That's Trick though. Trick does that thing sometimes.
yeah.
He will like once he gets something in his head. That's that. That's it. Doesn't matter how many times you say it. Right. Trick's a sweetheart though, but
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
it's
he
kind
did good. He did good. But there, I don't know why he insisted on saying some things like this when we're very clearly saying them the other way. Like this is our scene. We know how to say certain stuff
yeah.
for sure.
I think it would be fun to do. I think I spoke to Joe at the start of the year, maybe. Because I know that technically ESL and DreamHack is like doing the majority of what is the circuit right now. And he asked me if I was interested in doing some Warcraft 3 at the time. And I said, yeah, for sure. I was. It just this year has been a lot busier than I thought it was going to be. Let's put it that way. I mean, I spent like how many broadcast days did I do in Katowice last month? Like 26 broadcast days in Katowice last month for PUBG Mobile, and then this month has been a little bit quieter in inverted commas, but next month is all fully booked again. Be it PUBG or what is actually going on? PUBG, PUBG Mobile, PUBG, and then more PUBG. Oh, it's just all like PUBG
So
Mobile.
what do you do on the PUBG Mobile show? Because I thought Jason Kaplan is the one that's hosting.
He hosted PMWL West. I hosted PMWL East, which is the Eastern teams. And then before that, I hosted PMWL North America. I think he's going to end up hosting PMWL North America again. Sorry, no, I hosted PMWL North America before, and now I think he's going to host PMW North America this time because he's a kiss ass. No, because I guess I don't know. Maybe they want him for that, and I'm hosting a different PUBG Mobile one there. The thing is that they've got a very powerful state of the art studio there. They've got a lot of regions that they want to cover. For one host to do all of the regions seems nigh on impossible. That's why he was hosting West, I was hosting East when they were going on simultaneously, effectively. So yeah.
Is there any game that you wish you'd been involved with and you didn't really get the chance to? Like I know you play a lot of Sea of Thieves, for example. Is there even such a thing as Sea of Thieves esports?
It's funny you bring that up because actually there's a tournament organizer that keeps talking to me, like, and trying to get me in advance, but they're like, but it's not well paid. So if you've got other things going on at the same time, then take those over this. I've tried basically commentating an event with them 3 or 4 times over the last 4 months, but it's just not come to fruition because I've just been booked doing other things. So, of all the games that you bring up, yes, I would love to do Sea of Thieves, and yes, I have been asked to do it multiple times. It just schedule conflicts. It's really sad because I love that game. Like,
Yeah. How would it even work in competitive?
so they do arena mode, which is like many crews, like of 4, like as galleons, and you have to effectively get points by either like in the in-game arena mode, you have to dig up chests. If you hit another ship with a cannonball, you get some points. If you kill another player with swords or guns, you get points. And then at the end, whoever's got the most points wins.
So it's like free for all.
Yeah, kinda. Actually, yes. But again, with crews of 4, the funny thing about Sea of Thieves is I have, and they're introducing custom servers now. I have a ton of ideas that I think would make really cool broadcasts for Sea of Thieves, but I have no capabilities behind me to organize a tournament. I don't have all of this stuff to hand, but I think there's some awesome ideas that you could do with Sea of Thieves custom servers as broadcasts. But
Have you ever thought about doing a call with one of the people that makes tournaments and then just sharing everything and seeing like if something can happen?
those calls have already happened.
Okay.
I've spoken to Rare, who makes the game, or a few people from there, as well as these tournament organizers that are organizing these events every month. But when the proper custom servers are here, and I think they are, or soon to be, then maybe I can pass on the ideas properly. We've briefly spoken about them, not all the ins and outs. Um, maybe it'll happen. It'd be kind of cool.
If you get asked to host the international, how quickly would you accept?
Desk or stage or interviews?
Desk.
I've contemplated it in the past. I've thought
Yeah.
about it. I've not been asked, and I have not been asked at all ever. But if they gave me a good chunk of heads up, like a good chunk of time heads up, I'd probably do it for sure.
What's that? 1 month? 2 months?
1 or 2 months will probably be bare minimum. The thing
This is
is
esport though. You'll know a week before.
you say that, but my last 2 years have been very planned. I've known a lot of stuff
Yeah.
well in advance. Because the thing is that it is a very prestigious tournament. I know Dota enough that I could go in right now. I know Dota enough that I could go in and I could not fake it because obviously I know the game, but like I could get by. I'm pretty sure. But obviously with a tournament of that scale, I would be spending some extreme time prepping. Like you know me anyway. And as you've brought up during this interview, I spend quite a lot of time prepping. I mean, it's kind of all I do. I watch the tournaments or I'm making notes and stuff like that. But I would extremely immerse myself for all day, every day until the tournament came along, probably because it's big.
Do you have any advice for somebody who would like to pursue a commentating career as their job?
Mm. It's always a difficult one, isn't it? Because I feel like a lot of us kind of just fell into it, or were previously pro gamers like yourself. Actually, no, I say previously pro gamer. You still continue to be a pro gamer. Good on you.
Not really, more of a streamer, but sure.
So it's
Did you ever hear Richard Lewis's answer to this?
no. What did he say? Don't. Did he say? Is that what he said?
It was so funny. I can't paraphrase it exactly, but he said something like, well, expect to live in poverty, earn nothing, work for free, and like struggle for many, many, many years. And then maybe after 5 years of doing it, then maybe the old boys club will welcome you in and say, okay, come in, you're one of us.
It's a few years ago. It's probably not far off the mark. And actually, to be fair, in a lot of games, it's probably not far off the mark. Okay, so the advice that I used to give to people was remove your limiter. If you're wanting to do commentary, like there's a lot of people that enter commentary from the very beginning that are scared about being like really hype or scared about really letting their emotions go in a game because they don't want to sound silly and stuff like that. But I think once you actually get over that hurdle, that really helps a lot. And a second piece of advice that I've recently subscribed to for anybody that really wants to become the guy or get into a game is literally find every single tournament that is going on that exists in your game and commentate it and stream the game 24/7 with the tag that you are a commentator, because there are people that have made themselves in the past that I have watched in scenes. They have made themselves inseparable from that game from the word go because they have just been there 24/7, and the community usually latches onto those people if you're there from the very beginning, and the community will fight for those people, if you've been there from the very beginning and always there. So that's probably the best way. But that is so much grind. That is
Yeah.
insane levels of grind.
I think a good example is probably Kaldor with Heroes, right? From the
Precisely.
start, he was casting all the time. Everything that there was doing YouTube, he had big numbers on both of them.
Mhm.
And then everybody learns to know you as like this face of this game. And then like it's obviously when that happens, you're sure that you're gonna be doing like the big events and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's a good way to do it, but obviously many people try, not everybody succeeds.
Yeah. I mean, Kaldor is one. In CS:GO, Semler and Anders were one as well. I mean, I don't know if you recall, but Semler kind of before CS:GO was going from game to game and trying to find his break. Right. He was in StarCraft for a little while, and technically, all of us StarCraft kids um, were this sounds silly, but like we were more successful than a Semler when they transitioned to CS:GO. But when he went to CS:GO and then partnered up with Anders and stuff like that, they were always there, always on, doing every tournament they possibly could. And look where they ended up, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so
Sometimes
like
you just gotta keep trying, I guess, and then you'll find something maybe that fits you more or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Same about Forsen. Remember, Forsen was like a StarCraft 2 player that was like he
yeah.
wasn't really amazing and stuff. He would go to tournaments, not go very far. I remember I met him at a tournament and beat him pretty strongly on a kill and waste. I remember he like Ling Road showed me or something.
One waste, holy shit.
Um, and then like he went into streaming, and like for me, I don't really follow that. It was like the era where like a lot of people were switching to Hearthstone also and getting like insane numbers.
Yeah,
And then you look at that and it's like, well, these guys are very successful as streamer or on other games. Now, obviously, like he's somebody like Falsen has completely transcended Hearthstone and he's like just this big streamer. But
hmm,
yeah, there were a lot of guys that initially were on StarCraft or Warcraft and they went into Hearthstone and made it big there. So I guess you won't always necessarily have success immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit more trying.
I think our scene, like our StarCraft, this RTS scene has almost bred a lot of people for success. If they go and find other things, it makes you good at like problem solving. It makes you good at understanding um, a step by step plan to get somewhere. I think, and for someone like Forsen, he's the prime example. I mean, he to a certain degree is a bit memey, so might be the kind of a bit of a special case where he went into Hearthstone and started streaming and kind of like he captured again this kind of lightning in a bottle essence at the start of a game. But yeah, I think StarCraft kids are good at life.
Most of them, at least.
Most.
All right. I think that's our time. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And let's do some shout outs. Where do you want people to follow you these days?
It's all Kaelaris/Kaelaris. I'm sure you'll put it somewhere on a graphic because nobody can spell it. Even though I'm trying to lean into the KLRS thing more, but you know, if you type in both of those, you're gonna find me. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I want to do more live streaming, but it's very difficult with the schedule that I've got when it comes to tournaments. So thank you for having me, Todd. It was a good time to chat again. It's been a little while since we've got to chat, but it was fun.
Yeah. What do you got coming? Like you say, you stream sometimes, and I've seen the rare Sea of Thieves
Yeah.
streams. But I guess you're doing a lot of PUBG these days. Any dates you can share if people want to check out your desk hosting there, or just hosting in general?
Nothing's announced, but just I'm gonna be literally on everything PUBG and probably some PUBG Mobile in the future, and hopefully more StarCraft 2. Actually, I am guaranteed on the finals for StarCraft 2 for this fall season, so I think I'm doing every day. So yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, and yeah, have a good day, dude. Take care.
Bye bye.